All right, today we're going to be talking about Apt Pupil. That's going to be the second novella in Stephen King's different seasons. This book has to do about what happens when a little 12-year-old kid who's super obsessed with the Holocaust runs into an ex-Nazi living in his very own town. Who else but Stephen King to come up with that idea? I know. If you read Stephen King, you're probably not all that triggerable, but if there's anything under the sun that can trigger you, it's in this book for sure. First, I'd like to talk about the intrigue of the plot. Now, the plot is very, very intriguing. First, you never know where this story is going to go. Not for at one point in it do you know, and it always seems like there's about 100 different routes he can take. So yeah, that's very intriguing just to get answers. It's also very quick paced. It's never slow. And yeah, the weight of this book just builds and builds and builds and builds, like Stephen King has a way of doing for sure. Next, we'll talk about relationships. Now, this is going to be a new category I use on my book reviews, and it's just going to be how interesting were the relationships, whether it's friendship and rivalry, blah, blah, blah. And I'll give this a 10 out of 10, and that's all I'm going to say. All right, now we'll talk about length. I think this was the perfect length for this story. You don't want more than a bite-sized piece of Nazi. That's what I'll say. And this was long enough to leave an impression, but not a long-lasting one. No one wants... Yeah, I had my fill of Nazi. I'm not missing the Nazi. Yeah, no, perfect length. Talk about wit. Stephen King is pretty witty. He's almost always witty. I've never read anything of his that doesn't have some wit to it, just because he's a witty guy. And that's part of the reason I love him so much, is I like to read something where it feels like it's written by a really smart, witty guy. And this, nonetheless, this actually has quite a witty character. Old guy wit, if you may, which is kind of the best wit, you know? Yeah, that's all I'll say. All right, next, let's talk about believability. Now, I don't think I have to talk about this much when it comes to Stephen King, because I think Stephen King's, if he has one superpower, it's making his stories come to life. He is so good at making it so vivid and real. And yeah, if you have a problem where you read books and it turns into a cartoon, read a Stephen King book. I promise you, it'll turn it into HD. Oh, he's so good at that. I've never had a single problem with believability when it comes to him. I always buy his story through and through. Last little thing I'd like to mention is this is worth the read purely for, you know, your duty to not forget horrible things that happened, like this or 9/11. It's not fun to think about these things, but people died fighting against these things, and it'd be a tragedy for us to forget, I think. I don't know. I get that if it's too emotional of a topic for you, I totally get that. But if it's not, I think it's good to remember things such as the Holocaust, because my Lord, was it so terrible and tragic. This book definitely tells you some details that I didn't know that were just, people can be so evil. People can be so evil. Yeah. All right. Now we'll talk about our overall grades. Let's see. For my overall general enjoyment of it, it's a bit odd because this book definitely wasn't made to be enjoyed. Like, enjoyment equals fun, right? This was not fun. It was captivating. It was very, very interesting. I didn't smile once, though. Yeah, It was great, but it was awful, you know? So I'll give this a 7.5 out of 10. Great book, though. Now for the more objective, how good was this book? How recommendable is it? I'll go with a 9. Obviously, there's a lot of people who aren't going to be interested in this story at all. So that's got to drop it half a point or so. Yeah, this was a great book, though. For someone who's looking for something more serious fiction, maybe someone who's a bit interested in the Holocaust. Yeah, no, really recommendable. Great story. If someone said, should I read this as a good story? Yeah, you should absolutely read it, and it's a great story. Now, if anyone would like to be one of the very first comments on my channel, let me know which book I should read next. Out of East of Eden by John Steinbeck, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, or The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I don't know if I'm leaning any type of way. I'm kind of leaning towards East of Eden, because I've heard people say really good things about John Steinbeck, and I think I'm still looking for my one author. Larry McMurtry, to me, is a 10 out of 10, but I think all he does is Westerns. So, yeah, I'm looking for my guy, you know? My Stephen King's great, but I think I'm not quite so serious all the time. And as much as people harp about his characters, I haven't read that much Stephen King, but to me, you can't even compare what I've read from Stephen King's relationships to Larry McMurtry. It just feels like Larry McMurtry's characters in Lonesome Dove is turning into a Lonesome Dove review, but Larry McMurtry's characters in Lonesome Dove, I have to like force my mind to believe that they're not real. Those characters are like my best friends. So good. If you haven't read Lonesome Dove, go read Lonesome Dove. Thank you guys so much for coming, and have a great day.